Modern clubs win on every performance metric that matters. More distance, more forgiveness, more ball speed. None of that is in dispute, and we're not going to pretend otherwise. But a quiet number of golfers, including names you'd recognize, are deliberately picking up persimmon drivers and forged blade irons anyway. Here's the real reason, backed by the people actually doing it. Before we get into it, if you want the complete guide to buying the right equipment for your exact swing speed and handicap, the link will be in the comment section below. Subscribe now so you do not miss the next one. Even Rory McIlroy couldn't resist trying one. Ahead of the Genesis Scottish Open, Rory McIlroy picked up an old persimmon wood driver at the Renaissance Club's driving range, not for a tournament round, but out of pure curiosity. The numbers told the expected story. His persimmon drive carried 255.7 yards with 4,410 RPM of spin, a clear step down from what his modern driver produces. McIlroy wasn't trying to prove the old club was better. He described it as a cool throwback experience and noted something that explains a lot of this trend. Golfers can choose to play different tee boxes entirely when using old equipment, turning around into something closer to how the game used to be played, rather than a pure scoring exercise. The sound and the feel nobody talks about. A longtime golf salesman turned his passion for decades-old persimmon woods and forged blade irons into an actual rental business, now running over 100 sets of vintage clubs for golfers who want the experience rather than the performance. He described the difference in language that has nothing to do with yardage. A persimmon driver smacking a balata golf ball used to be the sweetest sound in golf, soft and sublime, where today's oversized metal heads deliver more distance but with a louder, harsher crack at impact. He compared it directly to the difference between Metallica and Simon and Garfunkel. That is not a performance argument. It is a sensory one, and for a specific type of golfer it matters more than the extra 20 yards. You don't need to be scratched to enjoy it. One persistent myth keeps casual golfers away from trying vintage clubs, the assumption that you need to be a low handicap to play persimmon without embarrassing yourself. The man running the retro rental business pushes back on that directly, comparing it to being handed the keys to a 1980 Porsche 911. You don't need to be a professional driver to take it for a spin and enjoy it. He confirmed golfers at his outings rarely complain about losing distance, largely because the courses are set up at shorter yardages, often around 6,100 yards, specifically so the reduced distance doesn't ruin the round. The goal isn't to compete, it's to start a conversation about what the game used to feel like. The tour history behind the clubs still means something. Part of what draws golfers back to this era is the craftsmanship story behind specific clubs. Tour players in the persimmon era would specifically hunt for old Tony Penna drivers because of how well made the heads were, knowing their own driver's wood would eventually crack from repeated use. Manufacturing wasn't consistent back then either. A sales rep might bring 10 identical drivers to a tour pro, and the player would only actually like 2 of them. When a tour pro found a woodhead he genuinely connected with, he didn't switch it out for a new one each season the way modern equipment cycles encourage today. That kind of relationship with a single piece of equipment built over years is part of what some golfers are chasing when they pick up a vintage set now. The family connection that started one collector's obsession. For some golfers, the pull toward 1990s and older equipment isn't really about golf at all. One contributor to this conversation described inheriting his father's old Hogan clubs after he passed away, having stored them away in an attic for over a decade without much thought. He eventually took them out to play an old-time course in Connecticut and found himself genuinely loving the experience. That curiosity led him to eBay, searching specifically for the persimmon clubs he remembered watching his father play growing up. The clubs themselves weren't the point. They were a way back into a specific memory that modern, mass-produced equipment simply can't replicate. This is a choice, not a strategy. None of this means you should put a persimmon driver in your bag for your next competitive round. The forgiveness gap is real, the smaller sweet spot is real, and the distance loss on anything but a perfectly struck shot is significant. What this actually represents is a small, specific group of golfers, some with real tour history, some simply nostalgic for their father's old set. Choosing the experience of golf as it used to be played over the optimized, data-driven version most of us play today, it's not a secret performance hack. It's a deliberate trade of distance for feel, sound, and history. Would you ever try a round with persimmon and forged blades? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe, we follow the data, and sometimes the data says the old way just feels better.